This is Developmental Milestones, Sadie's Journey Through School by Eliza Mistag. So, a few of the topics that I'm going to be talking about today are the introduction, Sadie's story, kind of who she is, conception and prenatal development, infancy, early childhood, middle childhood, adolescence, and then my resources page. Okay, so as kind of a brief overview, the topics that I'm going to be covering are key milestones from conception all the way up to adolescence, specifically exploring the physical, cognitive, and emotional growth that happen within each stage. It's important because these milestones help shape our understanding of human development and then also all of the factors that influence it and go into it. Okay, so let's start with Sadie. So for the sake of this project, I kind of created this character. She's not really based on anyone, maybe a little bit of my own life, but she's a fictional character that I'm going to use to help explain each of the stages of development. So as a little bit of her backstory, her mom was born and raised in Alaska, and her dad was moving to a different state basically every year of his childhood. But right now they live in Alaska. For some parental history, neither of them drink or smoke or do anything really. But her mom did used to have drinking problems, which genetically could play a role in Sadie's future later on. Okay, so to start, conception and prenatal development is where Sadie's life begins. This is when the egg goes into the uterus, and then the sperm finds the egg, and it fertilizes the egg, and forms a zygote. From there, she enters the germinal stage, which is from fertilization to 2 weeks, and then the embryonic stage, which is 2 weeks to 8 weeks, and then finally the fetal stage, which is from 8 weeks to birth. While Sadie is in her mom's uterus, she develops the ability to hear, becomes familiar with the language her family speaks, which is English, and she's able to blink, she's able to pee, she's able to do a lot of the bodily functions while she's in this fetal stage. Also, a little note, although she's not a twin, she could have been either a monozygotic or a dizygotic twin, which essentially means that either if she was monozygotic, that they would have been identical twins, so they share 100% of the DNA. The egg is fertilized and then splits into two, whereas the dizygotic is 2 eggs that were released into the uterus, both fertilized relatively at the same time, and then they're born at the same time. So they're just 2 siblings kind of being created side by side, but they only share 50% of their DNA. So Sadie is born. Now she's a little infant weighing 6 pounds and 11 ounces. For the sake of this, I'm going to be talking about her through her schooling. So, she's born with all of her reflexes. Between when she's born and 3 months when she starts school, there is a lot of development, but I'm focusing on kind of when she starts school. So she starts in the school's baby room, where the teachers mostly just play with them. They encourage them to roll over, they do tummy time, they encourage them to try to crawl, to walk, and get through all of those milestones, but also sometimes the mom will come back and forth and breastfeed, and so it's teaching them that their mom can leave and come back and they're going to be okay. It's teaching them like healthy attachments and all that sort of thing. They do kind of play with each other, but it's not the same as the next stage up. So the next stage up is mobile infants. Once the infant is walking, they don't necessarily have to be talking, but that's what they work on in the next stage. They work on talking and running and going over stairs and that sort of thing. So they work on all of the categories and all of the development in this stage. It's typically around, once they're walking, until around 19 months. So they are playing with each other. They're playing with toys. They're learning how to share and how to not share and then cope with it. And they're learning more control over their bodies, their coloring, but it's definitely just scribbles. They they focus on just looking at the pictures and finding words for things and that sort of thing in this stage. And then they move up to the toddler room once they're able to say a bunch of words and they can communicate a little bit better. And this is where they're completely independent besides potty training. So they feed themselves, they play with themselves unless it needs like an intervention from a teacher. And then they'll get their diaper changed, but they do have the option to go on a little potty because we encourage them, and Sadie is encouraged to go to the bathroom on the potty if she wants to, although it is never forced, it's just offered. After that, they'll move up. Now that Sadie is in her early childhood years, there's a lot of exploration and learning. After graduating from the toddler class, she moves up to the next class, which is about 3 to 4 years. Or they're about 3 to 4 years old. This is more about cognitive development, um, and having control over their body. She learns how to climb up ladders, how to go down the slide, push herself on the swing. She has to communicate better, and her friendships are becoming more, they're definitely play based. And so it's a little bit more, um, like she has her group, but will also play with the other kids a bunch. It just depends on who's playing with what she wants to play with. And she is drawing a little bit neater lines. It's not as scribbly. She can point at things, stack things on top of each other like blocks. She can stack them really high. She likes pushing them down. Um, so things like that. There's a lot more thinking. There's a lot more like playing, like with the dolls. She might have a little baby sister on the way, so she's been playing with dolls a lot more often and acting like it's her little baby. And so like pretend play, that kind of thing is very expected in this stage. And then once she is a little bit more mature and more developed, then she will move up to the preschool stage. So now she's in the middle childhood range, which is like 5 years old to 12 years old. In this, she does move up to the final class in the preschool and the daycare, which is the preschool class. In this school, it's 3 to 5, but majority of them are 5 years old, getting ready to go into kindergarten. So in this class, they have a morning session where they're playing. They all come in. They all do whatever they want to do, coloring, playing with blocks, playing with dolls, playing with kitchen stuff, reading books, whatever they want to do, they do in the morning. And then they all sit down for instruction time for about 30 minutes a day. And this instruction time includes things with numbers, with letters, with words, with counting, days of the week, months of the year, with the weather, that sort of thing. Um, and so it's really helping them move along in their cognitive development, but also they go outside, they're playing around, they're developing physically as well, they're becoming more aware, they have more autonomy, and so they dress themselves, they're a lot more independent. They go to the bathroom on their own, they do everything on their own. And then the next step is grade school. So kindergarten up to when they're like 12. So once she gets to kindergarten, it's a new school. She now has to make new friends. She has to meet new people. She has to do new things. And at first, it's a little bit tricky, because she doesn't want to embarrass herself. She doesn't want to make a fool out of herself, but she also wants to stay true to herself. And so that makes it a little bit difficult at this age. Okay, and finally is adolescence. So this is from like 12 years old to basically 20, maybe a little bit depending on the cognitive and physical capabilities. Um, so now she's in school and trying to make friends, but also trying to stay true to herself. So physically, she starts going through puberty in this stage, which is, for her, It means there's new hormones going through her body. She is growing substantially. She is now releasing eggs into her uterus every month, or generally like 30 to every 35 days. It's definitely like a spectrum of how many days it might be, but she is now on cycles, like monthly cycles. And so there's a whole lot of things like body hair, body odor, just kind of all of these physical changes that are happening to her. Um, and she's a lot more aware of her style, her looks, how people react to them, how she's treated. Her friendships are a lot more advanced because now it's more about a moral thing. She doesn't want to hang out with people, even if they're interested in one thing that's the same. If she doesn't like who they are as a person, then she doesn't want to hang out with them. And she is thinking more abstract, and she is making her own decisions. And like I said, the friendships are a lot more complicated, and whereas earlier, if there was a little dispute or disagreement, it would be fine, and they would forget the next day, most likely. But now it's a lot more detrimental if there is really a big disagreement, because that's what the friendship is based on. There's also her wanting to fit in, but also staying true to herself, which also was in the last stage, but this is identity versus role confusion from Eric Erickson. And so she's basically trying to figure out how to be a part of a group, but then also how to be her own person and be unique. And this is kind of elementary school, middle school, high school, a little bit of college, even like 18, 20, depending on when she wants to go to college. But she's getting a whole lot of information, and there's a whole lot of things happening right now. And so there is definitely a lot of development in this stage. And these are my resources. It is my last slide. Most of these resources are from photos, since I mainly used the one book that's listed in there. Kind of as just an overview, there are many stages of childhood, but there's specifically conception and prenatal development, infancy, early childhood, middle childhood, adolescence, and then, of course, after adolescence, but just focusing on those ones. Conception and prenatal development is about the egg being fertilized and developing into several cells, getting all of the genes, everything into one, and then start growing in the mom's tummy, and then, or in her uterus, and then when she's born, she is now an infant, and then she grows and develops into being a toddler, and then she grows and develops into early childhood and middle childhood, and then finally adolescence.